There's no crying in fantasy. Week 6, we are back. Sean, what's going on?
Man, disappointing Saints loss. You know, I hate to bring up the Saints right away, but coming off of week 6, it's just on my mind.
That was a
How
rough game
bad?
too.
I know is it the Saints offense is so bad. I just don't understand it. You know.
Yeah, it was rough all around. I think looking at the scores, this was one of the lowest scoring fantasy weeks that we've had thus far. And production is down just across the board. So it's not just, your team, it's your fantasy team as well. I think everybody's struggling right now.
For sure, and we'll get into the Saints in a little bit, but Saints versus Jags and stuff like that. And you're right, and because I was looking at it yesterday, and I was seeing where the Saints ranked amongst offenses, scoring offenses, and it looks like we rank about 20th or 21st, which I was heavily surprised with that because I thought we'd be pretty much dead last.
I think
So
everybody did.
yeah. So I'm like, so a lot of teams are struggling this year. So you are correct about that.
Yep. So let's go ahead. Let's get into the week. Um, I know a lot of fantasy players are going to be impacted this week. A lot of GMs because there are 6 teams on bye this week. So
Mhm.
make preparations. I'm sure a lot of you already have, but there are some key names that are going to be unavailable this week. So the teams that are on bye are the Bengals, the Cowboys, the Titans, the Jets, the Panthers, and the Texans. So just in that field alone, there's a lot of names out there that you're gonna have on your bench this week, and you're gonna have to look for somebody to replace.
Absolutely. And Bengals is a big one for sure because it seemed like Jamar Chase was getting the hot hand. Uh, but this bye week's gonna help out T Higgins to get him healthy.
Nothing's
He,
nothing's helping T Higgins.
man, T Higgins can't catch a break, especially in a contract year. Man, I feel bad for the dude
Yeah,
because he's a guy that is certainly worthy of getting top tier wide receiver money. Maybe not like top five, but pretty damn near top 10 in my opinion. So and he's not going to get that. Just,
yep,
just it just seems like he's been injury prone this year, and um, who knows? Maybe he'll get a little healthier and he'll ball out. Um, yeah, the Bengals they played the Seahawks last week. I think it was like a 17-13 victory there, right?
very very low scoring game.
Low scoring game. I believe Jamar. What was his fantasy outlook of that game? You remember?
Uh, I'm not sure. I'll have to check.
He had 14 points last week. He had 6 reception for 80 yards, 0 touchdowns, but 13 targets. So the dude went from 19 targets versus Arizona to 13. So that
Seven
should tell
Eleven.
you 7-Eleven. That means he's always open. 7-Eleven. Um, you know, if you can get your hands on Jamar Chase in a trade, this is the time to do it. But he's not going to come with a low price. He's going to you have to be bought high. Uh,
Yep.
is Chase a guy you would target in a trade, and is he worth giving up valuable pieces to bring him on your fantasy team?
I think so. If you can get him, and depending on what your roster looks like, I think if you can get Chase, it upgrades your team because the Bengals are getting healthy. They're starting to play better as you saw before the bye. I know last week was a low scoring game, but he's a target monster and he's going to get his targets. He's going to get the yards. He's going to get the TDs. I think he can only add value. Burrow's getting healthy, and probably coming out the bye. You're going to see them play a whole lot better than they were playing in the first couple of weeks. So, yeah, I would target Jamar Chase if you can get him.
And for sure, and I don't see any major injuries on their injury report for the Bengals. But and I agree with that perspective. And I was having a conversation with one of my league colleagues, because he was trying to poach Tyreek Hill away from me. I know in the group chat, I was mentioning that he was trying to trade me AJ Brown and others for Tyreek. But the thing is, the dude had Jamar Chase and Amon, say Brown, right? So I wasn't willing to trade Tyreek just for that alone because that man about to have pretty much three top five, top 10 wide receivers,
Yeah.
and there's no way. And Tyreek Hill is too valuable. But where would you compare Jamar Chase as the rest of the year projection to, let's say, the league's best in Tyreek Hill? Would you put Chase up there? Because the guy I was trying to trade with, uh, he says Chase is untouchable, and he wouldn't even trade him for Tyreek Hill.
Wow. I
Yeah,
would definitely trade him for Tyreek because Tyreek can change your week. So I mean, he's going for 2,000 yards. You've already seen it. I think he's like halfway there, and we're not even halfway through the season. So I would trade for Tyreek. But I put Chase in the top five. He's easily top five. I think any given week he can go off. He can change your week. He can win you weeks. I think he's that valuable. And with Justin Jefferson down now, you know, I think the next highest scoring wide receiver is maybe AJ Brown right now.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So Tyreek, it's probably Tyreek, AJ Brown, Puka's in there, but I don't have Puka in top five for sure. Um,
Right.
but CD, I think should be in there. I think you're going to see CD's value creep up as well as the season goes on. So you know, Stefan is in that category too, but Jamar Chase is a game changer.
I agree. And number one wide receiver for the Bengals for sure. And this is a team that's going to play against the San Francisco 49ers next week. And we'll probably get into that next week. So this is definitely a week for them to get healthy and prepare for that game.
Yep.
So, very important for T. Higgins. Uh, what what do you think this buy can do for him? And what do you think his fantasy outlook is for the rest of the year? Do you trade him? That's another trade conversation to have? Do you trade T Higgins right now? And this be his very worst value, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I would try to move T Higgins if you can get some value. I just don't see it. T Higgins is a good receiver, but I think when you are on that offense with Jamar Chase, and Joe Mixon in the backfield, there's just not a lot of volume for a T Higgins. So we called it in the beginning of the season. We said he was going to be a potential bust, and it seems like it's turning out that way. He's always had injury history, so that's something you have to be worried about going through the rest of the season as well. So I just say if you can trade him, look to trade him. If not, you know, he's a flex, or you put him on your bench in case you need him for a bye week or if somebody gets injured. He has potential to go off any given week, but it's just going to be very sporadic. He's boom or bust.
I agree, and I think if you are in a dynasty league, and I think even if you have to trade low, I think you trade him in the
Yep.
dynasty league because it's contract year. Uh, you know, I still think he's going to get big money. Obviously, he's not going to get as much as if he would have balled out so far and for the rest of the season. But I don't think he's going to re-sign with the Bengals. And so you just don't know that fantasy outlook after that. It's very dark, in my opinion. And I like T Higgins as a wide receiver. But it's so cloudy, and if you can get you know if you can get like a first round pick, if you're lucky, a first round rookie draft first round pick, if you're lucky in dynasty league, that would be great. Now, if you're not in dynasty league, if you're just in a regular league where you redraft every year, I don't know, maybe just stash him on the bench. I don't know if trading him really makes any sense because you're not going to get really much in return. So
Yeah.
you might as well just leave him on the bench until maybe all of a sudden he just gets healthy and starts balling out again. We'll see on that.
Yep.
Tyler Boyd had a good game, but nothing spectacular. He was 7 for 7, 7 targets, and he caught all 7 targets, 38 yards, and he had a TD. He's a guy that could step up if Higgins continues to be hurt. You also had the rookie Andrea. I don't even know how to say his last name. It's a very weird name.
Jovish.
Jovish out of Princeton, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a touchdown, but only 1 target, 1 reception. He played 15% of the snaps. Is that a guy to look at maybe in deep leagues? Is he worth a pickup?
No.
No?
Not right now.
Gotcha. As far as the Bengals, I think that pretty much covers it. I did see that Chase Brown got some action. I was intrigued by that. Just a little tiny bit of action. It's something to monitor if you're in deep leagues. But you have anything else to say about the Bengals?
No, nothing on the Bengals.
So let's switch on over to the Dallas Cowboys. Monday night, right? They played against the Chargers, right?
Yep.
They look great on both sides of the ball. Dak looked more consistent, in my opinion. And you mentioned your boy CD Lamb. He looked great.
Yeah. They were also playing the Chargers.
They were playing a bad secondary, yeah.
Has one of the worst secondaries in the league. So, I think that from a fantasy perspective, the Cowboys are always going to have fantasy relevance. Tony Pollard, CeeDee Lamb, it probably stops right around there. Brandon Cooks, maybe every once in a while you saw he had a good game, but I credit it to who they played as well. Dak had a pretty solid game. Numbers were okay for fantasy perspective, but weren't great. But you get those games, but I think CD is the one that you want to have. If you can target CD, I think CD is going to get a lot more volume in that offense. Tony Pollard looks okay.
He had a lot of receptions.
He did, but I think we're starting to see the Zeke effect with Tony Pollard and him not having that role. He's not that type of running back that Zeke was.
And I said that before the season started, didn't I? I said, Tony Pollard, I don't know if he would be able to, do the consistent down the down back like Zeke was able to do, constantly pounding it, he's a lot smaller than Zeke. He's still a guy who is very bulky and, probably one of the better shaped running backs in the league, one of the faster running backs in the league. And he can still break tackles and run over people. But, when we're talking about Zeke when he was in his prime, you're looking at he was like almost 230, 6 foot. He was able to withstand, the daily rushes, getting tackled heavily, if that makes sense. So I think that makes sense why he's being more used in the receiving game. And I think that's why you've been seeing Rico Dial getting more rushes as well. Yep. So I do agree with that. Do you try to trade Tony Pollard?
No, I wouldn't trade Tony Pollard. I think he's still a solid back end RB1 week to week, just because of him being involved in the pass game. He's still rushing the ball. I think he's still a solid back end RB1 right now.
For sure. Let's see. And I did notice that Dak had 7 rushes for 40 yards and a TD. And he was on a couple of design runs as well. That touchdown was looked like a read option there. Is that something you think the Cowboys might pursue in the rest of the year, or you think that was just part of the game plan versus the Chargers?
I think it was part of the game plan. I don't think you're going to see Dak use his legs as much as he used to, but you never know. But I just think that was a part of the game plan for this week.
Well, because yeah, I agree with that, but I also noticed that he was a lot more mobile in the pocket. He was rolling out. Um, Something he wasn't really doing too much in the first few weeks, and I think that led to more of his struggles. The more he rolls out, the more he's able to extend the plays. And if the pass is not there, he ran the ball against the Chargers.
Well, I
Um,
also think
you know,
it's the Chargers and their defensive line. That's their strong suit. They have the fourth most sacks in the league right now. So I think you saw the play calling kind of adjust to that, and that's what
that
you
makes
got from this
sense.
game. I don't think you're going to see Dak do that very often, but I think they kind of implemented that into the game plan to keep that defensive line honest.
Didn't Khalil Mack get like 6 sacks this year in one game? If I'm
Yeah,
not, that
yeah.
was
So
crazy.
they've had some success against quarterbacks. It's just the defense stinks altogether.
And
So
what about? Go ahead, go ahead. I'm
yeah, I was
sorry.
gonna say we got a comment from Hill. Hill said he better keep running. Read option been called each week, but Dak wasn't keeping it till Monday Night Football.
I
So
got you.
Hill wants him to keep running.
He says the problem is the old line. Yeah, he pulled up at the right time. As soon as we talk about the Dallas Cowboys, he pulled up. That makes sense. What about Brandon Cooks? He had a solid 15 points for fantasy, 4 targets, 4 receptions, 36 yards, and a touchdown. Looks like he was a little bit more involved. When I was watching the Dallas duo, Hill and his colleague was talking about Cooks and being utilized more versus previous weeks. I know we've been talking about the Chargers and how bad the secondary is, but do you see that production growing even after this bye week and their next games versus the Rams at home?
I do. I just wouldn't expect what you got this week, just because of who they played. But I do see him getting more involved because you got to think the first couple of weeks he was injured. Um,
Right.
he's starting to ramp back up. I think he's starting to get adjusted to not only game speed, but the offense itself. It's a new offense for him. He needs to build chemistry with Dak. So I think you're going to see him get more involved as the season goes on. So, yeah, if Brandon Cooks is out there, if he's on your waiver wire, I would say pick him up and just stash him. I had him in the beginning of the season. I dropped him just because of the injuries.
Right. I ended up picking up Michael Gallup a couple weeks ago because I thought he was going to overtake Brandon Cooks, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen. That was a bust.
Gallup is one of those guys that the potential is there, but he never shows it consistently. It's
Right.
like reminds me of like Jerry Jeudy almost. Like you have potential, but
That,
you just
that
don't
makes
show it in the
sense.
games.
Yeah, he either doesn't show the potential or he ends up getting hurt. Gallup is a guy that also gets hurt a lot.
Hill said, please drop Gallup.
Yes, if you got Gallup, do drop him. He's not worth a roster spot as of right now. I agree with that. There's really no important players for him on the injury report that we don't already know.
Nope.
What do you think your perspective on Dallas's defense, fantasy wise, moving forward? They, they're okay against the Chargers, but they only produced 4 fantasy points. Is that something we should expect the average to be? Because no digs for the rest of the year, and I think uh, Fander Esch is out for the year as well, isn't he?
Yeah, so we talked about the injuries with Dallas, and we talked about the effect. I don't think you're going to see them be the defense that they were in the beginning of the season. They're still going to have games where they're going to put up solid production because they still have Michael Parsons. Like that, him alone can change a game. But look at who they played this week again on the other side of the ball. The Chargers aren't, a bad offense. They're a very good offense. They just can't win games.
Right.
But you still have Keenan Allen, you have Herbert, Eckler, like they are a solid offense. So you can only do so much but to contain that offense. So I don't think that this was an indication of Dallas as a defense. I think they're still a solid defense. They're going to have weeks where they put up good value, but it's not going to be the same that you saw in the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and I think Dallas is a good defense fantasy wise if they have a good matchup. If they play against a bad offense, go ahead and pick them up and start them. But let's say they play more of a more complete offense, more consistent offense. Maybe they're not going to be worth the start. So,
well, that's the thing. If you have Dallas, you're not dropping them because you're expecting a high output from them every week. So,
right.
I think a lot of people are going to run into that problem where they face that crossroad. Like, do I have to drop Dallas defense and start streaming defenses? So, we'll see how it goes over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and they haven't had one game in the negatives. So normally you'll have one game in the they did have one game where it was just 0 points against the 49ers, but they for the most part they had some really big games and they at least didn't put you in the negatives, so
Yeah.
so I agree, just keep them for now, maybe even pick up a second defense if you don't like the matchup. But I think it, like I said, a lesser matchup, a bad offense, then I think they're definitely worth the start. Shout out to Marquise Bell, right? That's his name, right? The linebacker for the Cowboys.
Got me there.
He was our undrafted rookie. He was balling out. Hill would know. But let's switch over to the Titans here.
Let's skip them. Skip them.
You want to skip them?
Skip the Titans.
That's awful.
There's nothing I want on the Titans.
Skip well, Tannehill, is he? What's the injury report on him?
Probably going to be out a couple of weeks, but you're not starting. You're not starting Malik Willis. If Malik Willis is starting, you're not starting any of their wide receivers. That you downgrade DeAndre Hopkins.
What do you think? Do you think if they were to start Malik, you don't think Malik changes that offense a little bit?
No.
Okay.
I watched that game and he cannot get the ball out. I mean, he got outside and tried to run, and then the clock was running down. He should have ran out of bounds. Then tried to push himself. I don't want anything to do with the Titans. I'm sorry. I downgrade everybody, especially with Tannehill out. Just look to trade Derrick Henry. Just get rid of the whole offense.
I feel bad for Tajay Spears, man. He deserves better. Yeah, we can skip him. Let's go to the Jets then. So, let's see. As far as injury report, there's really nothing. We don't know. We did see Aaron Rodgers on the field.
Means nothing.
You don't think it means anything?
No. I think he's just there for moral support for the team. He may be back by the playoffs, may try to come back by the playoffs if they can make it, but nothing there.
So their biggest contributor fantasy-wise has been their defense. At 12 points against Philly, and then the week before that, 19 against Denver, which that's not surprising because Denver kind of sucks. 7 points versus Kansas City, which that's okay, but that's been their biggest point gainer fantasy-wise. Garrett Wilson, what's your fantasy outlook for the rest of the season for Garrett? Because you got to keep in mind, trade deadlines are coming up. That's why I'm mentioning, fantasy outlooks for the rest of the season. A lot of deadlines are coming up next week. And one of my leagues is for next week. 17 points against Philly, 12 targets. He caught 8 of those targets, 90 yards. You watched that game, right?
Yeah, of course I did.
Yeah, you're an Eagles fan. You're right. They not undefeated anymore, man.
I like Garrett Wilson. I think the volume is there. Seems to be building better chemistry with Zach Wilson from what I've seen. And my only issue with Garrett Wilson is they're not taking a lot of shots down the field. But he's a target monster in that offense. Alan Lazard hasn't done much. Randall Cobb isn't doing anything. There's not many other options in the pass game that other than Garrett Wilson right now. So I think you're going to see a lot of Brees Hall and a lot of Garrett Wilson going forward. So if somebody's trying to get rid of Garrett Wilson, or you can swing a deal, I say do it. I think he's going to be a good piece for your roster down the line.
And they traded McCole Hardman today.
Trading him back to the Chiefs. So
Back to Chiefs.
that's one person out of the way again. Like, he wasn't doing anything anyway, but
Right. And Brees Hall, he's a guy I almost traded for, but I didn't. Brees Hall, he had 2 back-to-back pretty damn good games.
yeah.
28 points versus Denver, 20 points versus Philly. He only had 39 yards rushing, but he had 54 yards of receiving, and he had 1 rushing touchdown versus Philly. I do think the fantasy outlook is strong for Brees Hall because you just got to look at the schedule. Look, after the bye, he's got the Giants, struggling team.
Yep.
That's going to be sort of a low-scoring game. They're going to be pounding the ball for Hall.
Yep.
Then you got the Chargers. You just seen Tony Pollard went off in the receiving game from the running back position. Yep. That's if you're in a PPR league, Brees Hall might be pretty up there to start in week 9. And then they kind of go into the rough stretch, going to 2 division games. Brees Hall, so I think he's a guy that if you have him, don't trade him, keep him, because I think he has top 5. He's going to finish in the top 5 in my opinion amongst running backs. Maybe 3.
I'm starting him every week. That offense goes. That offense goes as Brees goes. So
I agree. And if you do have Brees Hall, it wouldn't hurt to pick up Dalvin Cook just for insurance. I know Dalvin Cook hasn't done much, but you wouldn't. And look, he'll just comment at Michael Carter. Any upside on Michael Carter?
I like Carter better than I like Cook.
Really?
Yeah.
So if Brees Hall were to go down, who are you picking up, Cook or Carter?
A lot of people pick up Cook. I might pick up Carter.
Well, let me look at Carter real quick.
He hasn't done much because
he hasn't done much. Yeah.
But think about it. If Brees Hall goes down, Dalvin Cook has not looked good at all.
Well, they would do a 2 running back system. They probably use Carter for more receiving.
I think it changes their offense. Brees Hall is a pass catching back, and he's between the tackles.
Dual threat. Yep.
Right. If he goes down, I want the pass catching back.
Because especially if you're in PPR leagues,
right, it changes the offense. I think they're going to be utilizing more pass-heavy approach. Dalvin Cook just does not look good. I mean, maybe he looks better if Brees Hall goes down and he gets more volume, but he just does not look good. I wouldn't touch Dalvin Cook. Give me Michael Carter if something should happen to Brees Hall.
Right, and Hill says Cook is cooked. That makes sense.
That's a good way of putting
it. What about Tyler Conklin? He's probably on the waiver wires in most leagues.
I don't want him.
You don't want him?
Nope. I don't want anything else on the Jets. If it's not the Jets defense, Garrett Wilson or Brees Hall, I don't want it.
He's been averaging about 8 points a game. That's not too bad for a tight end, no? I mean, that's about it for the Jets. I don't think I'm missing anybody. I mean, everybody else, like you just said, doesn't do anything,
We can skip the Panthers. Anybody not named Adam Thielen, skip the Panthers.
Well, I want to talk about Adam Thielen for a minute. Do you think he continues to do what he's doing? Because the dude's literally like going ham right now. He's doing what Puka was doing the first 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, I think he can, because who else is catching passes in Carolina? Nobody. Right.
So, but you just didn't. You just don't expect that, because how old is Thielen? Isn't he like 33 or something like that?
32, I think.
Yeah, this is crazy.
32. I mean, he's not that old
Mhm.
I mean, he is old for a receiver, but like he's not a running back. You know, the biggest fear here is issue. It's not ability. You know, he's always been a solid receiver. He was a solid
Yes.
receiver before he left Minnesota. I just think it's a funnel right now for him. You see that Bryce Young is looking for him. So, you know, if you have Adam Thielen, just put him in your lineup. He's going to get, 8 to 10 targets probably every week. There's nobody else. DJ Shark's not getting the targets. Jonathan Mingo, who we thought was, going to get some targets, he's not getting any targets. Like Laviska Shenault is out. Like there's nobody in that offense. Yeah, like Chuba
Well,
Hubbard
he had
is
a good game.
he had a good game, but is Miles Sanders coming back next week? Like this is the game you got to play with the Panthers. So that's why I say if it's not Adam Thielen, I don't want anything else to do with the Panthers.
I would try to sell high on Thielen. If you got Thielen, try to sell high. Maybe you
Why
get
is
some
that?
good value.
Because
I
of
don't I don't
injury?
know. It's Adam Thielen. I don't think anybody expected him to do what he's doing right now because he even had a slow start as well. It's only been these last 2 or 3 weeks he's been going off. Um, I mean, we're talking over 11 receptions here. This is like Puka Nakua like numbers we were seeing. So I just don't. I didn't see that in Minnesota. I saw great play from him, but I wasn't seeing over 11 receptions a game.
Before
But
Jefferson got there, we were.
yeah, but that's in his prime.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't see it, especially with a struggling team like the Pampers. I just don't see him continuing that success because right now he's a wide receiver one on most teams right now,
Yep.
but I just don't think he will continue to have that wide receiver one success.
But he's still going to be
You know,
startable every week.
I agree with that, but I think his more of his where he's supposed to be is more of a flex play.
Yeah. I mean, if you have Adam Thielen, he is overproducing for what you drafted him for. You
Okay,
probably
I got I got two other guys here. Would you choose? And this is for fantasy for the rest of the season. Adam Thielen, DJ Moore, or Calvin Ridley?
that's tough. I'm going probably DJ Moore.
Mm.
Going DJ Moore.
Even with Justin Fields out.
That's the caveat. Does Justin Fields come back? Because if Justin Fields doesn't come back, then I'm probably going Adam Thielen.
Okay, so no Ridley at all.
I can't trust Ridley right now. I don't think he is comfortable in that offense right now, and I don't think he has the chemistry with Trevor Lawrence that we thought he was going to have. It's Christian Kirk is the one that has the chemistry.
That is true. Kurt had a great season last year, and he's starting to continue it this year. Uh, let's switch over to the Texans now. Um, they beat my Saints. I know that happened. Um, CJ Stroud, man, I don't think he had a great game fantasy wise, but watching him, you know, down for down and actually watching him, that dude's the real deal.
He's rookie of the year.
Rookie of the year, that man was throwing straight dots, like
Yep.
just straight dot. Like dude's really good. I think he's definitely if you're in a keeper league and let's say you're only keeping one player. I don't know. I think you would have to heavily consider him, depending who you have. I think you have to heavily consider on keeping him as one of your keepers for sure.
I mean, if I have CJ Stroud in a league, I'm potentially starting him rest of season.
For sure, because I have Patrick Mahomes in all three of my leagues, and that's the first time I've ever done that because I drafted Mahomes in the second and in the third on my other two leagues, and I've never really drafted a quarterback that high. And one of them is a keeper league, just a one player keeper league, and I'm like, I might just keep Mahomes for like the next 5 years because that just sets my quarterback up for the next 5 years, and I don't even have to worry about it. And I feel like that could be the same thing with CJ Stroud, is what I'm trying to say.
Yep, I agree.
Tank Dell, his injury report. I wanted to look at that real quick because he
You're
was
not
out.
you're not gonna get anything on him this week. But I think he's probably coming back after the bye.
Yes. Okay. It was just a concussion, right?
Yeah, he's
Okay,
probably coming back after the bye.
that makes sense. Nico Collins. Are we thinking he's finishing in the top 10 in the wide receivers?
No,
No.
solid flex play. That's
What is he? What wide receiver he is right now? Is he in the top 20 or top 15?
let's see. Nico is 1 second. Nico is probably in the top 15.
Top 15.
Yeah, solid flex play for. I mean, like he's been good throughout the season, but does he sustain that volume? Does he sustain that production? I don't know.
He had 20 yards per catch versus the Saints. Four reception, 80 yards, which is it's hard to do.
So he's had
You
double
know,
digits. He's had double digits every week but two, and then he
right?
had five points against Jacksonville, 6 points against Atlanta. So he's going to have some inconsistency throughout the season. So yeah, he's going to put up some good numbers week to week, but he will have that. That's why I say he's more of a flex play than anything. Like I can't trust him to be, a wide receiver 2, wide receiver. He's a wide receiver 3 flex to me.
Are you picking Adam Thielen over him?
Yes, definitely.
I think I would too. Just because Adam Thielen. Well, I would consider Nico wide receiver 1 for the Texans, but I think Thielen is more of just the main guy for Carolina right now, like you were saying
Yeah.
earlier. So, Nico Collins. Let's see. How did Dalton Schultz do? He had 16 points. So that's 3 games in a row for double digit points fantasy wise. He had 7 targets, caught 4 of those targets, 61 yards. He had 3 touchdowns in the last 3 games. So he's been averaging a touchdown in the last 3 games. Are you trading for Dalton Schultz if you're tight end needy? And what are you trading for him?
If I'm tight end needy, yes. But I'm not giving up much. Maybe, a wide receiver on my bench, something that I would find what somebody else needs.
That's an interesting topic because I didn't even really look at Schultz. But I'm good on tight ends. I got my tight ends. I got Sam Laporta. I don't even have to worry about it unless he gets hurt. And I did pick up Michael Meyer, by the way,
Yeah,
from the Raiders.
he looked
Um,
good.
he did. Damian Pierce, not looking so good.
No,
If he continues what he's continuing to do and putting up stinkers, and let's be honest, this is predominantly a passing offense. Um, let's say he puts under 10 points versus Carolina, under 10 points versus Tampa Bay. Do you think he's a drop candidate?
yes. I think he's this year's James Robinson, like James Robinson in his third year. Like he just hasn't been producing. Singletary is actually starting to get more carries or starting to creep up in carries.
That is true.
So maybe he's fallen out of favor a little bit. So yeah, I just don't like Damian Pierce right now.
In fact, I think yeah, he had more snaps than Damian Pierce, Singletary.
Yeah,
Pierce was only on 33%, and Singletary was on 54% of the
yep,
snaps. So Singletary might be a sneaky little pickup. I know he only had 7 points versus the Saints, but he had 12 rushes for 58 yards. Not much in the receiving game, but it's somebody to keep an eye on. Um, but that's about it with the Texans. I don't really see anything else to talk about.
Yep.
Um, so we can get into Thursday night games. Starting off with the Thursday night game, Trevor Lawrence is questionable with the knee. Say Jones is out. Uh, Jawan Johnson says he's been ruled out. Jamal Williams is questionable. Coming
Think
off,
he's
I believe he was on IR.
think he's coming back.
I think he will, and I think the Saints do kind of need more of a balanced attack, rushing the ball, and maybe that would help the offense. But I just don't see the Saints' offense getting any better, just because the coaching offensively has been horrible. Um, and people like to rag on Derek Carr, but I mean, in my opinion, there's just nothing he can do. But there is one guy I really like for the Saints, even though the offense has been struggling, and in my opinion, he has been the best playmaker. I don't know who you think I'm going to say.
Rashid Shaheed.
Rashid Shaheed, and I think you should start him as a flex
I
this
like
week.
him. I like him this week. I
I
like him
like
this
him a
week.
lot.
Going against the Jags. Jags have a solid defense, but it's more up front than it is their secondary. Their secondary is probably one of the worst in the league right now. So I say Rashid Shaheed is a flex play if you need somebody.
I wonder how good the Jaguars defense is when it comes to tackling, because that's the biggest thing with Shaheed. He could do it on the ground too. He's been getting them jet sweeps a lot lately, and I just feel like sooner or later he's going to bust one of those too. Because even though his special teams is not going to count for fantasy, it will count for the Saints' defensive special teams. But he's a guy that can bust a play at any minute. Like, he only had 2 receptions, but that was for 85 yards and a touchdown. So I mean, I think that's a very startable candidate for a flex. And I think, Olave had a good game last week. Michael Thomas continues to say the same. Um, not great, but not bad. Just about decent. Um, so I think you start Shaheed for sure on your flex.
Yeah.
You know,
So Jacksonville is giving up the second worst average in passing attempts um, every week. So they are right there with the Chargers. So yeah,
who
start the league.
who is their secondary? I know Cisco and the safety. Who's their corners?
Can't even tell you right now.
I, that's insane. Like, I couldn't tell you. All right, so I mean,
They're good at
that's,
getting pressure up front, but if they can't get to the quarterback, their cornerbacks and safeties are not giving them any help. So yeah, start your Saints wide receivers, please.
what about Jacksonville offensively? What about Travis Etienne? What do you think his outlook for Thursday night is?
I'm starting everybody on Jacksonville that I would normally start. So if Trevor Lawrence is playing, I'm playing him. If ETN is playing, I'm playing him. Christian Kirk, I'm playing him. Ridley, I'm still playing. But I'm just tempering my expectations because the Saints are a really good defense. And they are probably top 5 against the pass right now. So they're a hard team to pass on. They're a hard team to run on. But you got to think Jacksonville's offense has been shaky at times, but ETN has been kind of that bright spot where he's had some really good weeks. So this could be one of those weeks where he just puts up some solid numbers. So I'm still starting everybody on Jacksonville.
I think I'm sitting Evan Ingram though. I'm sitting Evan Ingram. If you have somebody you can start him over, he would be one of my sits. Now, Calvin Ridley, this might be a breakout game for him if Trevor Lawrence is, you know, can stay clean in the pocket, if his offensive line can hold, and if his injuries won't bother him. I think Calvin Ridley has a chance to break out, and I think Kurt will too. But Ridley has a history with the Saints, and he's known to have big games against the Saints. So he has burned us, and he's burned Marshawn Lattimore plenty of times. So I think he's a candidate to have a breakout game. Now, will he play off of that in future weeks? I don't know, but it could be something to watch for. But I'm sitting Evan Ingram. And you're always starting Travis Etienne. He's a top 5 running back right now, in my opinion.
Right. Exactly.
Maybe just not fantasy, even in real life. Top 5.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? You agree with that?
I wouldn't call him top 5 in real life, but he's definitely top 5 in fantasy right now.
For sure. I think we can move on to the next game. Raiders at Bears. Jimmy G questionable. Let's see. Roshan Johnson questionable.
He's not playing. I don't think he
He's
plays.
not. So that means more Dante Foreman.
Yeah.
He had a lot of carries, and he might get even more with the backup quarterback if he plays. So Herbert's gonna be out for till week 10, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't like anybody in this matchup.
For the Bears.
No, I just don't like anybody not named Josh Jacobs or Jacoby Myers. Like,
what do you think about the tight end, Michael Myers? He had a good game last game.
Yeah, I have to see it again. But yes, he's trending upwards right now. I don't know if I'm like inserting him into my starting lineup right away, especially if I have another option. But I like it. They're going against the Bears. They should be able to pass on the Bears. But you also got Brian Hoyer as your quarterback right now. So, don't expect too much.
That is true. So you don't think Jimmy G is going to play?
I don't think so. I mean, like looks like the battle of the bums this week. You got Badgett and Hoyer. Like, there's no interest for me.
Well, I will say this, and Michael Meyer played 81% of the snaps last week. So it was 66 the week before and 51 the week before that. So I don't know, man. I think he's definitely a top waiver wire pickup.
Yeah.
And you don't have to start him right away. Just put him on your bench, see what he does. I think we can move on to the next game. Like you said, it's a battle of the bums. This could be another game if Deshaun Watson doesn't play. Another game could be battle of the bums. Browns at Colts. The Colts did not look good against the Jaguars with Gardner Minshew. Josh Downs did have a touchdown, by the way.
Yep.
So, what's your perspective on this game? You think Deshaun Watson plays?
I don't think so. After hearing some of the reports from the Cleveland side, I like Kareem Hunt. I like Jerome Ford this week. I think they're going to be running the ball all game. We've seen last week that Amari Cooper can have some success with PJ Walker. So I would still start Amari Cooper. On the other side, it's going to be tough. The Browns defense is tough. We saw it last week. They are legit, like top 5, if not top 2 defense right now. You can't run on them. You can't throw on them. So, like, I don't know how good Gardner Minshew is going to be this week. I think he has some solid weeks coming, but this is not it. And I am worried about Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, like everybody on Indy right now. But if you need somebody, Zach Moss, who we've been hyping up, we saw it again. He's getting the touches. So I think he's a solid flex play again this week if you need somebody.
And that's who I really wanted to talk about. And you did see JT get more playing time. They're starting to ramp him up. Do you think Zach Moss will continue this success he's having? Even with JT getting more touches?
I think you're going to see Zach Moss be a potential trade candidate at the deadline.
I agree with that.
I think they're showing him off. And one thing that we're seeing from Zach Moss that we haven't seen in recent years, especially when he was in Buffalo, is he's getting involved in the pass game. And that's critical for fantasy. So I like him as a flex play this week.
He did have 7 targets. He caught 6 of those, 38 yards. So that is pretty damn good. Didn't have that much rushing attempts, but he did have a touchdown. He had 17 points. So I think, and I do agree, I think they are looking to trade him, and I do think they will try their best to up his value. If they do keep him, and if JT starts to you know, to be the RB1 for the Colts again, I think Zach Moss would be very comparable to what Kareem Hunt was back a couple of years ago with Nick Chubb. I think that
Yeah.
would be a similar situation. I saw it flex play, like you said.
Yeah.
Do I think he's gonna do these 20 points, 30-point gains in the future? No, he might not even get that again, be honest with you. But do I see him averaging, even with JT being RB1 again? I can see him averaging 10 to 13 points a game for
Yeah.
sure. Because
Yep.
they're going to have, they got Gardner Minshew, at quarterback, and they're playing some really tough defenses the next 2 weeks. Cleveland, then the Saints.
Yep.
So and Carolina's no slouch either defensively. They're not great, but they're not horrible, right? They're not. No, Carolina started off good defensively. Like you got to realize their offense kind of sucks. So I mean they're on the
They're
field.
bottom 3 against the run.
That makes sense, honestly. Because you got to think about it. Bottom, they're normally coming from behind, so teams are going to run the ball more to run out the clock because they're already in the lead. That makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I agree with that on the Zach Moss. What about Michael Pittman? What do you do with him for the rest of the season? Are you looking to trade him or what?
I mean, if you have him, you start him, but it's not looking good right now. Like I said, better days are coming. It's just not this week.
And I think he got most of his points in garbage time, huh?
Yep.
I mean, maybe this is a team you might poach for garbage time if they get blown out. Who knows? Yeah, garbage time points is valuable in my opinion.
Yeah, Minshew got all his in garbage time last week. So
right. Let's see, and then I wanted to talk about. Nah, he didn't really have that Garrity game. Never mind on him. We can move on to the next game. Let's see. Buffalo Bills at New England. You got anything on that one?
Ramondre Stevenson, start him. He looked okay against Vegas last week. From the Bills side, I'm starting just about everybody. Latavius Murray. If I have Latavius Murray, I am starting him. He is creeping up in snap share. He is creeping up in touches. It seems like he is kind of getting a little bit more favor in the locker room. Cook is still involved, but I think from a between the tackle standpoint, they like Latavius Murray.
And yeah, because Damon Harris got hurt, and they did bring in Fournette for a visit, I believe, but they didn't sign him.
They said don't even come.
Latavius Murray did get 49% of the snaps
Yep.
last week, so that is a promising sign. 12 rushes, 45 yards. Because I think I believe they want to try to get James Cook more involved in the receiving game because he was a non-factor versus the Giants. I think passing wise, period, it was a non-factor for the whole team, for both teams last week.
You want to take some pressure off of Josh Allen, so you're going to see them use Latavius Murray a little bit more because James Cook is not a between the tackles runner. So you got to have somebody that can go between the tackles, take a little bit of pressure off the run game, off of the pass game. So they're going to use Latavius Murray to take that pressure off of Josh Allen. that's the only one I wanted to talk about in this matchup.
Yeah, there's nothing to talk about for New England. Sorry, Patriots fans. So next game, the Commanders at the G-Men. Does Daniel Jones play? He's questionable. He's
I
limited.
think he plays. He said today he didn't have much pain, so I think he plays this week.
A lot of people are shooting for Tyrod to play. You think Tyrod's better than Daniel Jones?
No, I don't like
It,
either of them. But I
man,
don't.
the Giants should have never gave Daniel Jones that
They
contract. I'm
would never give
sorry.
him the money. Yeah,
They could have just tanked for Caleb Williams.
yeah.
You know. Saquon's questionable. You think he plays?
I think he plays.
I don't think there was any injuries for the Commanders. Sam Howell. How do you feel about Sam Howell?
I like him this week.
For sure. What do you let's see what he did last game. He had 18 points. Only had 151 yards. Nothing
Yeah,
spectacular.
it wasn't great, but he got you pretty much what you needed if you started him.
Terry McLaurin had a good game.
He did.
What
They made a point to get him involved early.
and Jahan Dotson, I don't think he's
Drop
been
him.
struggling. He's been
Drop.
struggling. Drop him.
Drop him. Yeah.
And I think that's been a big disappointment. But that opened up an opportunity, and I want to talk about this dude. Curtis Samuel. He's been having a great season fantasy wise.
He has. Yep. And he's getting involved. I mean, he's the type of guy that Eric Bieniemy likes to use. He's a very gadget type of player. And I think you're seeing that, and he's becoming more of that number two in that offense. So if Curtis Samuel's out there, I think he's a solid flex play. If you need a flex, go grab him and put him in your lineup.
For sure, because the last 3 weeks, 18 points, 18 points, and then 14 points. So
Yep.
I picked him up off of waiver wire. I was surprised he was still there. Definitely worth a pickup. Okay, let's go to the next game real quick. Falcons at Tampa. That's going to be a hard-nosed game. I don't think there'll be much scoring involved, but maybe a lot of rushing for Atlanta. Now, seems like Atlanta's been utilizing the 2 tight end system. I know you said in the group chat you don't want anything to do with Kyle Pitts, but you don't think this might be an opportunity for Pitts to keep sustaining success?
No. Uh, if you were to ask me if I want Kyle Pitts or Jonnu Smith, I'll take Jonnu over Kyle.
Yeah, Jonnu Smith. Obviously, he's got the rapport with Offer Smith because go back to the Tennessee
The
days,
Tennessee
right?
days. Yep.
So, I don't understand why Atlanta just needs to trade Kyle Pitts.
I think he's a potential candidate by the trade deadline. So, but I think it was good to see him get a little bit involved, but I just don't see that being consistent. I think the preferred target in the tight end game is Jonnu right now.
What is the Buccaneers? What are they ranking rushing defense?
In rushing defense, the Bucks are top 10.
So what do you think that does for Bijan? You think Bijan has a game, let's say, because he hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been great like he's been hyped up to be fantasy wise. 11 points and 13 points. I think he gets around there, but I don't think he has a great game against the Buccaneers.
I don't think it's that bad because I think you're going to see him get more involved in the pass game. They're going to utilize him that way. So I think he's still going to get you what you need from a fantasy perspective. He's one of those players that can impact the game in multiple ways. It's not just rushing the ball. So if I have Bijan, I have high hopes. I'm still starting him. So yeah, I think he gets you what you need.
Yeah, he's been averaging about 5 or 6 targets a game this season. And this is I'm just looking at all the games he's got listed here, about 4 receptions a game. So it's pretty good for a running back. Not putting any stock in Drake London, right?
I like Drake London. He had a really good game last week.
He did actually. Not 9. I didn't even see that. 9 receptions for 125 yards. Holy cow!
Yeah, I like Drake London, and Tampa is a bottom 10 pass defense. So I think you're going to see them utilize a pass game this week. The only question mark is, can Desmond Ritter, get the ball where it needs to go? That's the issue.
Right. And do you think Baker Mayfield plays? He's listed as questionable.
Yeah, he plays.
And Rashard White, what's your opinion on him?
Not starting him.
He's ass. Let's see. Next game, Detroit Lions at Ravens.
This is going to be a good game.
No David Montgomery. Although he's listed as questionable, Craig Reynolds, he's probably going to be in place for David Montgomery.
He didn't practice today.
He didn't practice. Who's their backup?
Ibram
from out of Minnesota.
Yeah, Ibram, and then Jahmyr Gibbs, of course. Jahmyr Gibbs is the only one. Jahmyr Gibbs is the only one I would want to start.
And the last time we seen Gibbs get the start when Montgomery was out earlier this season for one game, I forgot who they played against. Gibbs didn't do all that great. Do you think he redeems himself? And he's a guy that's not been seeing a lot of action, mostly because Montgomery has been balling lately. Yeah. Do you think he kind of redeems himself and kind of showcase what he can do?
I'm all in on Jahmyr Gibbs this week.
Do you play DFS fantasy?
Yeah.
Do you think he's worth a DFS start?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to get into DFS. I don't play DFS, but I've been thinking about playing it. So, Sam Laporta, you think he plays?
Yes.
I think he plays, for sure. Ravens. Okay, so did they lose last week? No, they had a bye last week.
Yeah.
So coming off the bye.
No, they played in London. They played Tennessee last week in London.
That's right. You're right. Who do you think from the Ravens has a big game against the Lions?
Zay Flowers, that's it.
Yeah, Mark Andrews.
Yeah. Mark Andrews.
Yeah, it's a known commodity. We already know about Mark Andrews.
Yeah.
Zay Flowers, his last game, 17 points versus Tennessee. He's steadily become their number one wide receiver. No doubt about it.
Yep.
Next game, Steelers at Rams. I think this might be a big game offensively for the Rams. I don't know where the Steelers rank defensively. I know they're not bad, right? As far as passing,
their secondary is pretty bad.
It's bad?
Yeah, the Steelers secondary is bottom 10. Their rushing defense is they are bottom 5. So
wow,
bad secondary. I'm actually starting the Steelers defense this week, but it's because they are top 5 in sacks, top 5 in turnovers. So it kind of balances itself out as to them being a bad defense from a yards perspective. So I'm starting them because I think they have a good chance of getting to Matthew Stafford with TJ Watt. But I think it's going to be a good game for all Rams pass catchers. The run game,
including Tutu.
No, just Puka and Cooper. That's the funnel. That's it.
Okay, I got you.
And I'm not touching any Rams running backs this week.
Yeah, because Kylan's out and Rivers is going to be out, so you're down to Zach Evans and Freeman, and then they signed somebody else.
Darrell Henderson is back on the squad.
And they brought back Darrell Henderson.
You
If
don't
I
know
had to,
who you don't know who's going to get the start.
you don't know who's going to get the start, but if I think Evans is going to get the start, but if he struggles, I wouldn't be surprised. And I know Freeman, um, was he on the practice squad as well with Henderson?
He got called up. Him, Miles
And
Gaskins.
they have Miles Gaskin too.
Yeah, Miles Gaskins, Royce Freeman, Darrell Henderson, and then Evans.
Jesus. I wouldn't be surprised if Henderson gets
I wouldn't be surprised if
multiple
Henderson
snaps.
either because he has the familiarity with the offense.
Right, because we seen this last year, the year before with him and Cam Akers. They kind of flip flop between those two. So, and Henderson had a couple good games for the Rams, if I'm not mistaken, huh?
He did. Yeah.
So that's something to look out for. I mean, you're not starting any of them
Yeah.
unless you're like truly desperate, So Arizona at Seattle. I think this is a big game for Seattle offensively.
Yeah. I like Seattle this week. I like the Cardinals this week as well. I like Josh Dobbs. I like Marquise Brown. I like possibly Rondale Moore or Michael Wilson as flex plays. I just think that this is going to be a high scoring game because both defenses are middle of the road. Well, Arizona's terrible, but Seattle's middle of the road. Um, I think you're going to see some high scoring points in this one.
What is Seattle's? How many fantasy points? Okay, where does Seattle's defense rank against opposing running backs as far as fantasy points?
I believe that Seattle is bottom 5 against the run, but let me confirm that. Just give me 1 second. Well, they're middle. They are middle of the pack against the run.
Because Ingram intrigues me a little bit, but I think he's worth a pickup. But am I starting him? No. I did pick them up last week. I was able to trade him. I was able to include him in a trade. So, somebody to keep an eye on. Green Bay at Denver. I think this is a good opportunity for Jordan Love. Maybe Romeo Dobbs. Is it Dobbs? Romeo Dobbs?
Dubes.
Is it pronounced Dupes?
I think it's Dubes. I don't
Wow.
know.
I think he's been struggling the past 2 weeks, on Dupes.
Yeah. This one's hard because you want to like everybody on Green Bay, but Green Bay kind of shoots themselves in the foot a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the opportunity. So if you have Christian Watson, if you have Dubes, Jaden Reed, Musgrave, I think any one of them can go off. And then you also have to factor in Aaron Jones is possibly coming back this week as well.
You think he
So
plays?
I think he plays. I'm personally, I have him in 2 leagues. I don't know if I'm starting him. I might be starting him in one. But I have other options, and I just want to see how he plays because the last time he played, he didn't get any work. He was on a snap count. A.J. Dillon got all the work. So I want to make sure that he's getting the touches that warrant him being the starter in my lineup week to week.
So you're keeping him on the bench until he proves that he
Yeah.
gets this.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Are you starting Christian Watson?
Yeah.
For sure. I agree. He's been doing pretty well the last couple of weeks. Since coming back from that injury. I know it took him a game or two to get back in shape, but seems like he's been the true wide receiver one for him.
Yeah.
I don't know if Musgrave has been doing anything. Has he been doing anything, Musgrave?
No, but I think he's a startable option at tight end if you need somebody. I think he'll get some volume. It's just hard because, like I said, Green Bay just shoots themselves in the foot.
They do.
This is an enticing matchup. You would think that you would be able to start everybody in this matchup, but you just don't know.
And then as far as Denver, I mean, as far as the Suttons and the Jerry Judys of the world, there's really nobody. Not even them two.
Sutton's the only one I would start. Jerry Judy, I actually have him in the league. He's on my bench now. I'm not starting him ever again until I see it. Javante, probably going to my bench. Um,
I
like
would cut him, bro.
I can't. I'm in a 14 team league. I just can't. I can't cut him.
I understand.
So, you know, you're just not getting the production that you thought you were going to get with Denver.
I know. Denver has been a complete disaster for the whole season. Which Wilson has been a decent fantasy quarterback though this year. He's been a decent.
He
A
has, yeah,
lot of garbage time points.
yep,
Um, Chargers at Kansas City. I think that's going to be a really good game. A really
yeah,
good, hard fighting game. Um, the Chiefs haven't been as high scoring as they used to be in the past, but they're getting it done. They're winning games. They got McCole Hardman. What do you think his fantasy outlook? You for some reason, people in my league seem to think he's going to be wide receiver one for the Chiefs. There's no way.
no, no.
He wasn't
I
even wide
think
receiver one. He was with the Chiefs in the past.
I think he's going to be that gadget type of player, screens, jet sweeps, the type of stuff that the Chiefs like to do that the Jets weren't doing. So I think he's going to get some touches, but it's not. It's just not going to be enough to sustain fantasy relevance. The one person that I am looking at on the Chiefs is Rashee Rice. I think Rashee Rice is going to be the number one. So you're kind of seeing him get more involved week to week, and they even had a report out today that he's starting to earn the trust of Andy Reid and Mahomes now, where he's going to get more involved in the offense.
And the Chiefs desperately need, in my opinion, a wide receiver one outside of Kelsey.
Yep.
And as you've seen with Tyreek Hill in the past, if they have a true wide receiver one, they could be pretty deadly as an offense.
Yep.
Isaiah Pacheco has been going off. He's been doing really good.
I like him this week. I'm starting him where I have him. Yep.
And Chargers wise, you think Austin Eckler? I know I wasn't expecting him to do much last week, especially against the Cowboys, where they're pretty solid against the run.
Yep.
And we know Eckler does more than running the ball, but he got 10 points, which is not bad. Do you think he returns to his normal self this week?
Yeah, definitely.
Good.
Yeah.
Because I have him. All right. So, Dolphins at Eagles. Okay. Say the best. The game of the week, man. That's going to be a good game right there. Man, I'll let you go ahead on that one.
Start everybody.
On both sides.
Yeah, just don't start the defenses. Start everybody.
Well, Ramsey's coming back for the Dolphins on the defensive
no,
side.
he's not coming back this week. He's out.
He's out this week?
Yeah, they rolled him out. I say, like, if you have, you're starting Waddle, you're starting Hill, you're starting Mostert, you're starting Tua. On the Eagle side, you're starting A.J. Brown. I think that this is the Devontae Smith game that everybody's been waiting for.
Is Devontae Smith playing?
Yeah, he's playing. Okay. Julio Jones just got added. Do not run and go pick up Julio Jones, please. But
because Quez Watkins is out for the year.
Yeah, Quez Watkins is on IR. I'm not sure if he's out for the year, but I know he's at least out 4 weeks. Hurts, big bounce back game, I think, this week. Same thing for DeAndre Swift. Like, this is just a game that is supposed to have that firepower in it where the stars put up the numbers. So I wouldn't hesitate to play any of these players this week. We saw Salvin Ahmed get into the end zone last week as well. So that was one of our calls. I say if you have him, possibly look to, if you need a desperate flex play, give him a shot again this week.
Because you don't think Jeff Wilson's playing, huh?
I'm not sure. So if Jeff Wilson plays, then Jeff Wilson is the flex play. If Jeff Wilson doesn't play, then Salvin Ahmed is the flex play.
How is the Eagles against the run?
Very good against the run, but the thing about Miami is Miami likes to use a lot of spread runs, where they call them to the outside, which Eagles have a stout middle, but you get them on the outside and you can gain some chunk plays. And then they like to use their running backs in the pass game as well. So, I think Miami's going to find ways to get their running backs involved.
So you think this is going to be a high scoring game?
I think so. Yeah, it just has the makings of a high scoring game. It's two terrible secondaries going up against each other and two high powered offenses. Now it'll probably wind up being like 13-17 and a terrible game, but I think if anybody has the chance of making a high powered game, it's these two teams.
Yep, and you got Jalen Hurts, former Alabama quarterback, versus the other former Alabama quarterback in Tua. So
Yeah,
it's going to be a hell of a game. We move on to Monday night, San Fran at Minnesota.
biggest
McCaffrey's
injury of the
not
week.
playing.
Yep,
Um, are you okay? Mason or Mitchell?
either or.
Neither.
Either or.
Either or. Okay.
Yeah. Minnesota's pretty good against the run, but I would say if you need a running back this week or if you had Christian McCaffrey, I don't think you can go wrong playing Mason or Mitchell because I think what they're going to do is they're going to utilize both. It's not Christian McCaffrey back there. There's not one person that's going to dominate touches. So if you play one, I think you have the potential of maybe getting 10 touches and possibly a TD from one of those running backs.
Mitchell has been hurt, right? I
Yeah, I
think
think
that's what
that's why
he's been.
he didn't get a lot of work last week. So he was on that
That's why
ramp up
Mason's been
period.
getting most of the
Hmm.
bulk.
Yep.
Because we've seen that in that blow because it started with that blowout win versus Dallas. You seen Mason getting a lot of the work, and then you know if it's not McCaffrey, you continue to see Mason. But Mitchell has been always their second guy, and you saw it last year when Mitchell was healthy. He was still part of the game plan even when they traded for McCaffrey last
Yep.
year. Um, so because Mitchell's a good running back,
Yeah. Yep.
so what do you think? Or are you starting anybody from Minnesota?
Addison and Madison. Like
You think
I
those two will
know.
have a good game?
Yeah, I know people say Madison is like kind of poo pooing Madison, but he's been very involved over the last couple of weeks. Been involved in the pass game as well. I think that continues this week, especially with them not having Justin Jefferson. They're looking for ways to get people the ball. So Addison is going to have a good week. I think Madison probably has a solid week for fantasy. I just can't trust Osborne or Powell. Like Hawkinson, Hawkinson's probably going to have a good week as well.
You think he
Um,
will have a good? I think he
yeah,
might have a bad league, huh? You don't
no,
think?
I think when you have playmakers like that, you have to find ways to get them the ball, and they'll find ways to get Hawkinson the ball. They'll find ways to get Addison the ball. They'll get Madison the ball. It's just Osborne and Powell that I don't have any interest in starting either one of them.
I think a lot of people will be surprised that Minnesota might win the game.
No, not at all.
No,
I,
I would bet on it. I
I
wouldn't
think
bet on it.
you have an angry San Fran defense that just got embarrassed along with their offense. Like,
Well, Schwartz is like 10-1 versus Kyle Shanahan. Did you know that?
hmm, I didn't know that.
I don't think that's completely accurate, but Shanahan, even when you go back to his offense coordinator days, when he's played a Schwartz led defense, he's only won once
Hmm,
out of like 10 matchups.
okay.
So he has historically struggled against Schwartz defenses.
Okay.
Um, and that's why you can kind of see why they lost to Cleveland. Now, what do you think about Brock Purdy? He struggled with the lack of weapons last week. No Christian McCaffrey. Is Debo playing?
I think he plays.
And you got Ayuk playing, right?
Yep.
You think he struggles again, or you think he bounces back?
So I think Purdy bounces back.
Okay.
Um, I'm looking for Minnesota on here. Uh, Minnesota is kind of a middle bottom tier defense. I think Purdy has a pretty good game this week. Even if Christian McCaffrey doesn't play, I think you see Purdy kind of bounce back this week.
And they're in the dome, so no weather. So I
Yep.
mean, uh, that could have some effect as far as production for the
There's no Miles
49ers.
Garrett on the other side.
No
So
Miles Garrett,
right,
uh, no Denzel Ward. You
right.
know, so I mean, I think Purdy and like I just said, Shanahan has struggled against Swartz in the past. So I mean, I can kind of see that. I can kind of see Purdy having a bounce back game.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I think that dismounts does it. We This is the first time we went over an hour.
Yeah.
And no crying in fantasy. Was there anything else you would like to add in tonight's show?
Nothing else. I think we covered everything. Gave everybody some good insight. And as we always say, there's no crying in fantasy. So if we don't give you the right advice, don't go crying about it.
Man, just yeah, don't go crying about it, man. Yeah, I'll be at the Saints game tomorrow. For tomorrow's Thursday night game. So
Best of
maybe
luck
just
to you.
yeah. I don't. I'm not saying we're gonna win. I don't think we're gonna win, but well, just pray for me. That's all I got to say. All right.
All right,
Uh,
Sean.
all right. So
We'll
there's
see you
no
next
crying in
week.
fantasy. We'll see y'all next week.
All right.
All right.